I'm gonna give a super typical gay answer for this one. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. And it might surprise some people that it's coming up to my 5th year anniversary on YouTube. I've been creating content on YouTube for nearly 5 years.
It's been 84 years.
Which is, it's quite amazing, to be fair. Weirdly, it doesn't feel like it's been 5 years. It feels like I've been doing this for like, I don't know, like a year or so. It definitely doesn't feel like 5 years. So I thought it'd be the perfect time to do a little Q&A, ask me anything, get to know me a little bit more. Because I might have some new people on the channel. I might have some people who have followed us from the very beginning who know very little about us, or not a lot. To be fair though, I feel like I talk about myself a lot. Like, I don't think there's a lot that people don't actually know about us, because I just chat shit constantly, don't I? But apparently there's a few things people want to know, so let's get into it. So a couple of days ago, prior to recording, I put a little post on my YouTube community tab thing, asking anyone if they had any questions, and a few people have asked me some things. I also left it quite open, so you can kind of ask my opinion on stuff. And some of these questions, mind, I'm quite shocked, well, I'm not quite shocked, but I'm quite kind of taken back by how interesting the questions are. I thought there were going to be questions like, oh, what's your favourite colour? Or like, what's your favourite food? No, these are some proper like hard-hitting stuff, and I'm really ready to get into it. So the first comment is from Nigel, who put, "Hey Anthony, how about the top 3 things you have learned from arts and crafts that could help a beginner? Could be something from college, your own work, or advice you received that changed the way you understood something." This might be a little bit of a tough one. I don't know whether I have a top 3. I think my very first one would be trial and error. I think that's the most important thing in basically anything, especially when it comes to arts and crafts, but it can be easily brought over into any situation really. So in order to get good at something, or to kind of understand something a bit better, is trial and error. You are going to make something, and for that first time it is going to look absolutely crap. It might potentially look good, but more than likely it's going to look crap. Go further ahead to your 20th time making that exact same thing, or making a similar thing, and you'll have come on leaps and bounds. It'll be a million times better. That's why when it comes to like textiles and knitting and crochet and stuff like that, I could probably do it if I had the time.
Sure, Jan.
I don't have the time to spend solely dedicated to learning how to knit or learning how to crochet or anything. It would take me weeks and weeks and weeks before I actually got good at it. Or to be fair, before I understood even the basics. And I don't get a lot of free time, so that's why I'm stuck in this perpetual state of being absolutely awful at textile stuff. So yeah, I think trial and error would be my top thing I've learned. I think another one would be not to be too scared of trying something new and trying something different. Because you might have noticed on the channel, I do like a lot of different crafts, a lot of different kinds of stuff. I don't kind of pigeonhole myself into one thing or one specific craft. I like to try everything. And I might be absolutely dreadful at one thing, but I might be really, really good at another thing. And unless you try it and have a play around with it and just go for it, you're never going to know if you're going to be good at it or not, or whether you're going to like it or not. So I would say trial and error, and what was the other thing I've just said? And try new things. Don't be scared of stuff. I think they're the top 2. I don't think I have a third one. I hope that helped, Nigel, if you're just beginning with arts and crafts. Now this one, I'm going to try not to get too kind of in-depth and ranty about it, because I could get really ranty and go on like a 10-hour tangent on this one. But Goody Miller commented, "What are your thoughts on how the world assigns value to art, specifically along the lines of how art seems to be valued simply by what a couple of people in the art world think about it, and not how the majority of people would value it? Example being someone who tapes a 10-cent banana to a wall and sells it for 6 figures, but someone who spends decades perfecting beautiful landscapes who never sells a painting. Thoughts." A bit of mouthful. So I recognise this artist that you're talking about. It was in, I remember seeing it on the news. Let me just check. Banana art on wall. So Goody Miller was referencing this piece of artwork, which was by an artist called Maurizio Catalan. I'm sorry if I'm butchering that. And they basically attached a banana to a wall with some duct tape. And it was for this art exhibition thing. Apparently it was an edition of 3. And it was this conceptual art piece, and it consisted of a certificate of authenticity with detailed diagrams and instructions for its proper display. And 2 editions of this sold for $120,000. Someone bought a banana that was stuck on a wall with duct tape for $120,000.
Jeeves, pack my bags and wipe my bum.
And what are my thoughts on this? Where do I start? So I have some serious issues with the art world, and when it comes to the value of the art world and the art market in itself, and going through my degrees in fine art, I started to realise that art, it almost doesn't become art anymore. Art starts to turn into money. It starts to turn into an investment, and it's not because of how good the work is. The work can be literal dog shit. It can be the worst piece of crap you've ever seen. But for some reason, if someone can bullshit their way and tell you that this banana that's stuck on a wall is worth this amount of money, and it's this fantastic, crazy new invention that everyone wants to get their hands on and is going to be worth a fortune in the future, people will set an incredibly high price on that. Is it right? Not at all. And this isn't a new thing, it's been happening for a very long time. There's an artist called Martin Creed, and I believe this artist sold scrumpled bits of paper in like a box, and I can't remember how, in fact I'm gonna Google it, how much did they sell them for, because I think it was a lot of money. So apparently you can buy one of these crumpled bits of paper, and it was an edition as well. I think there were like hundreds of them. Oh no, there were 88. And if I wanted to buy one now, it would cost me £2,250 for a crumpled bit of paper from Martin Creed, and you get like a certificate and stuff with it. It's literally an A4 piece of paper that's scrumpled into a ball. And what you find with the art world is that it doesn't matter how good something is. It doesn't matter about talent. You could be the talented artist ever. You could make and produce the most amazing, breathtaking pieces of artwork and just be completely undervalued and overlooked in the art world. But if you create some complete bullshit, crap, lazy piece of artwork, but give it this kind of meaning and this concept, people eat it up. Nom, 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 nom. It reminds us of a time at uni on my undergraduate degree, and there was this guy who was studying, he was in my class, and he was busy getting pissed, he was busy, you know, going out, doing what he wanted to do, wasn't coming to lessons or anything like that. And it got to the final assessment part of this module that we were doing, and I'd spent all of this time creating a piece of work. I can't remember what I made, but it took a long time, a lot of effort, and I invested a lot of money into it, and I think I came away with like a B grade. This guy came in last second, he painted a brick white, put it in the gallery exhibition space and set it up for assessment, obviously wrote this bullshit statement explaining why this white painted brick was the best thing ever and the intentions behind it, and this person got a C. This person got a C for like half a day's worth of work, and I got a B for like months of work. And that's basically what embodies the art world. It's honestly, it's completely hypocritical and just a lot of shit. It's just a complete load of shit, it really is. And it's one of the reasons why I kind of distanced myself from the art world and I stopped kind of creating and selling my artwork, because I couldn't stand it anymore. I didn't want to be a part of that. I didn't want to be a part of that community where when you start to become something, you are literally just looked at. It's like a piece of money. You're just literally a factory for money. It's a similar thing with when I watched a documentary on Damien Hirst, and he was kind of showing you around his exhibition and his paintings and stuff like that, and he couldn't remember which of the paintings in this exhibition he actually painted himself.
He only ever did about 20 himself before he handed the job over to his army of assistants.
These are ones I actually painted.
Oh, these are your own?
I think so, yeah. You can see the holes in the centres where the compass marks are.
But you're making order out of colour here, aren't you?
I suppose, yeah.
Which I don't think some people understand. You could go into a gallery by an artist such as Damien Hirst and be looking at an impressive painting by Damien Hirst, and Damien Hirst won't have even painted that. His brush, his paint, nothing about it will have been applied to that canvas or to that piece of wood or anything like that. An assistant will have made that work for him. And you might be thinking, oh well, he'll have probably come up with the idea and told them what to do. No. Sometimes what will happen with artists is they'll have a bunch of assistants, and the assistants will kind of get briefed on what to do, but they'll use their own creative talent and their own creative skills and produce work for the artist, and the artist just like put their name on or something and just say, yeah, that's mine. Here's a gallery full of other people's artwork, but it's actually my work, and I'm getting paid millions and millions of pounds for the pleasure of that. Nah. So what are my thoughts on it? I think it's just, it's unbearable, and it just makes you realise how fickle the art industry is. And the worst thing about it as well is when I was at uni, you weren't allowed to voice these opinions. You weren't allowed to kind of challenge the authority that is the art world. If I said that a white painted brick in a gallery was a lazy piece of shit and isn't worth anything, isn't worth my time, isn't worth any effort at all, it's nothing. It is literally not art. The tutor or the art professional or a curator or someone like that, a professional body in the art world, will start to explain to me and talk down to me about how this brick, how this white brick in this gallery space changes context because of the situation that it's in. And it is considered art because it sparks a reaction. And what does that reaction say? And what is that metaphor about life? And they'll go into all of this crap when you know for a fact the artist behind this work couldn't give a flying about it. They really couldn't. They couldn't care less. But people just feed into it. Nom, 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 nom. It's ridiculous. And then that brick will sell for £1 million. That's why I never felt kind of accepted in the art world, because I don't necessarily have a very literal mind. I can kind of see concepts and I can appreciate concepts, but I can also call out bullshit. And if you're putting bullshit in front of us, I will tell you it's bullshit and I'll tell you it's lazy. And then people didn't like that. People really didn't like it. They expected you and wanted you to bow down and bow over to their way of thinking, but they would never challenge their way of thought to think how you think. It was a very one-sided way. Anyone who's ever studied art or been in kind of an art environment will 100% understand that. It's their way or no way. And no matter how much your argument makes sense, or no matter how much you can back up your argument, they'll still come at you with something else. They'll pull you down. They will pull you further and further down until you feel so completely worthless. I've experienced it myself. I could go into a full conversation about the terrible experiences I've had in the art world, but that might be for another day. So no, I think it's a load of crap, Goody Miller. I absolutely despise it. Okay, so here's another comment that kind of relates to what Goody Miller was talking about. So Isla Y commented, opinions on how you rarely see well-known artists that haven't come from prestigious colleges, and how in the art world it's not what you know, but who you know, as well as how much money you have or pay for high-end colleges. Also how art gets shit on when artists who aren't able to break through either freelance or switch to an undesired career path and do art as a hobby. Much love. Oh, this is it. See, some of these kind of questions and thoughts and opinion gatherers, they're so hard-hitting, and they've got like, I could talk for hours about it, I really could. I'll try and be as precise as I can. I think I could kind of answer and embody this whole question and topic through one word, and that's privilege. So for people who are trying to get into the art world and who are trying to make something of themselves, creating art, it's an incredibly competitive market to get into. It is so hard. It's ridiculous. Even to the like lower level of the art world, it's still cutthroat, so competitive, so difficult. So what happens is people who are in a privileged position and possibly know other famous artists, or their family members are in that art world and are quite prestigious within the art world, they suddenly go from all the way down in the depths of the complete despair where you absolutely hate yourself. They skip this step. They don't even belong here because of who they know and what they know and how they've managed to squeeze their way in. So they automatically go from all the way down here where everybody else starts to all the way up at the top. And you find that with many, many famous artists. There's very, very few artists, I think, that have actually worked on their craft and worked on art and been celebrated for the art that they produce without having a level of privilege. Because if you think about it, a lot of these artists who have managed to make it to the top, they might not have had to work mega long hours at a different job. They managed to be able to dedicate a lot of time and a lot of effort networking and making and doing stuff with the art and with the art world, whereas other people, they've had to go and work a job and then do it on the side, and they just don't have the time for it. And time's a privilege. I don't think people realise that. Having free time and being able to do stuff like that is a privilege. Some people can't just like put their life on hold and stop everything and be able to kind of pursue this and do it to the extent that they do. And then also, if they've managed to do that, they still have to compete with the people who have automatically got to the top anyway and who are already kind of knocking all these people down, further down and further down. So I think that's why you rarely see well-known artists that haven't come from prestigious colleges, because you don't have the money money for it. They don't have the money to go to these colleges. They don't have the time to be able to do these things and get through them all and all of that kind of stuff. And also with this comment, they've put also how art gets shit on when artists who aren't able to break through either freelance or switch to an undesired career path and do art as a hobby. I just think they're not taken as seriously in the art world. But then you have the opposite situation. So like, if we think of Jim Carrey, I'm just using him as an example. He's an actor. He's a very famous actor and stuff. And he decided to do, and this is just one example, there's loads more. He decided to do some paintings in his free time because, you know, why not? He's got millions and millions of dollars in his back pocket, in his bank balance, loads of free time. Let's whack out the canvases and paintbrushes and do a few nice paintings. And because of their celebrity status, they've instantly, again, gone from down at the bottom, where everyone else starts, automatically right at the top. And it's just not fair. It gives the people down here absolutely no chances. They've got no chances, or very, very few chances to actually make something of themselves. And it's like that with the art world in general. I remember I would be applying for like art jobs and stuff in galleries and whatnot, and I wouldn't even be getting interviews to them kind of jobs, even though I'd be taking a pay cut from the job I was in at the time to get there, because someone already knew someone up here and beat me to it and got that job. And I was finding it was happening again and again and again, and it just eventually just beats you down. You're like, you know what, I can't be arsed with yous anymore. Yous are proper shit. But I also don't think this is just isolated to the art world. I think this can be found basically everywhere. I think what happens when you start to kind of get older and go through life and stuff, you start to realize how unfair the world is and how disproportionate people are placed based on nothing else but where they're kind of from or who they know or what they have and what they're able to do. The world doesn't value talent or skills or creativity or anything like that. It values people who are able to get into them places before anyone else has the chance. That's why you have a lot of unqualified, unskilled people in positions of power. They don't know jack shit about anything. They know the people. They know their little circle up here. And you start to just realize like how unfair the world is for the people at the bottom. And the people at the bottom are almost destined to be stuck down at the bottom, because it's too hard. You can never kind of break up through there, going the normal way. It's just shit. It's really shit. The world's proper like shitty. We've created a society where the balance of everything and the balance of what people can have and the opportunities people can have, it's not even like a little bit like this. It's like so far apart, it's unreal. World shit. People are shit. That's my answer to that. And I think what'll happen as well is I can kind of feel it. I don't know whether anyone else can feel it, but the world seems to be getting progressively more divided and more separated. And it'll get to the point where the people down here are getting pushed so further down and getting pushed further and further and further down. What'll end up happening, in my opinion, is there'll be some sort of like crazy shit that happens, and these people will get so desperate down here, they'll say, you know what, enough is enough, not having it anymore, and who knows what'll happen. I think something really big will end up happening. It can't continue. This massive gap in society and in the world, it can't keep growing. It keeps growing and growing and growing. It can't keep doing that. It's going to get to a breaking point and people are going to start to revolt. I think so anyway. People can disagree with us. And that's not just in the art world. That's in literally every aspect of life. I told you I'd probably go on one. I told you with these questions that you've asked us. Oof.
We're all going to die.
Okay, so we'll move on to a little bit of a light-hearted one because I feel like the past two have been very, very intense. So Masculine commented, what is your favourite craft that you've done on the channel? Or top 3 if it's hard to narrow it down to just one. There's one specific one that I'm incredibly proud of and very happy with, and it was incredibly challenging. And it's this in the background. My mannequin light thing that I made in the car boot remake and DIY challenge or whatever it was called, I don't know. But that's my favourite piece I've ever made. It was so hard to do, and it's still not particularly well made. If I made this again, I would make it 1,000,000 times better, but that's definitely my favourite thing I've ever made. Okay, so Janet got in touch and said, I would love to know more about where you live and the history of the area. I'm a huge history buff and always wanted to visit Europe. So I guess my question is, how do you see history and art? Do you pull a lot of art inspiration from history and from the area where you live? So I'm actually not a history buff. I've never particularly enjoyed history. I preferred geography over history when it came to school. History I just found incredibly boring. I can appreciate it and everything like that, but I just found it, I don't know, it didn't get me that excited. So I've never personally pulled history into my art practice. My art practice was always all about materials and how I can manipulate materials. That was the core focus of my art practice. But the history of my area, I'm not sure where you're from, Janet. I can't remember whether you're from America or Australia. I feel like they're the main places my audience are from, or Canada. So I live in the northeast of England, and with the kind of history of the northeast, it's all to do with mining and pits. So I was raised, I don't know whether my village was a pit village. I'm pretty sure it was. Let me check. Yeah, so my village, where I was originally kind of raised and lived for the majority of my life, it was a pit village. And people who aren't from the UK might not understand kind of the pit culture or the pit history in the UK, but especially in the northeast, we had a huge coal mining industry, and all the villages around the northeast, and I think around the UK as a whole, to be fair, were dedicated to the pits. So people would live in these villages, and then there would be kind of a pit close by, and they would get on a bus, and they would travel to this mine and dig for coal and stuff. And my uncle actually used to work in a pit when he was younger. Obviously all the pits closed down and stuff, which is why we're still left with the villages. And I think something that people from the States, if you're from the States or if anyone's from the States, might find a bit weird about the UK or about England or about Europe as a whole, is that we don't have kind of random housing estates in the middle of nowhere. We're not completely reliant on cars. So our housing estates are usually around kind of villages, and the villages have shops and hairdressers and cafes and restaurants and stuff, and they're basically like little communities. Obviously there'll be exceptions to that rule, so you'll have all these little villages, and then you'll have a bigger town in various places, and then you'll have the bigger city centre, which is obviously bigger than the towns and everything like that. So if you didn't have a car or anything, you could just walk and have all the amenities that you needed, whether you need to go to the leisure centre, church, shops, anything. It was all on your doorstep. I think America's kind of infrastructure and their history is all built around cars and transportation. So I know in like the States, I think it's quite hard to get buses and stuff, but in the UK, buses will literally travel through villages, even through housing estates and stuff. They're not just kind of destined for the city centres, they're absolutely everywhere. I currently live in the middle of nowhere. I live in the countryside, quite near the coast. I can see the sea from my window. If I looked out that window, I'd be able to see the sea. And although I live miles away from anything, I could still walk to a bus stop. It would take me a while, but I could still walk to a bus stop and get a bus into a local town centre or the city centre or anything like that. So the infrastructure is quite good. I don't know why I started talking about infrastructure for. It's supposed to be about history, but yeah, I'm not a huge history buff, but there's a lot of history that's happened in the UK, and I'm probably the wrong person to ask. Okay, so the next comment kind of follows on from that a little bit. And Leela commented, all these are questions, and here I am asking about your home. Who do you live with on the farm? Is it family, just a bunch of random people? Do you rent a room from someone? I don't know why this is my burning question, but it is. I think of this every time you record outside of your studio. I just want to understand your situation. So I live obviously on a farm in the middle of nowhere, and I live with my family. So it's a family run farm, and it's not by choice I live here or live on this farm or anything. It's because I literally can't afford to buy or rent my own place. I've been priced out of the market. It's not happening. It's impossible. Not on the income I'm on anyway. So yeah, I live with my dad and my dad's wife on this farm with obviously all the animals and stuff. And that's it really. We're just here kind of chilling, doing our own thing, and just out in the sticks, just trying to survive and do our best. It's not that I don't want to be here. I kind of like it, but I also would absolutely love my own home. I would love my own place to call home, have it decorated the way I wanted it to be decorated, and just kind of have everything where I want it to be. It's very difficult living at home when you're of a certain age, and especially when I think society has this expectation of when you get to a certain age, you have to have your own home and a job that pays a crazy amount of money and stuff, but that's not the reality for everyone. And also, it would be kind of overlooked if I didn't acknowledge my own privilege in the fact that I'm able to do this, because if it hadn't been for my family and the position that my family are in, I wouldn't be, well, I'd probably be homeless. I don't know where I would be in life, but I wouldn't be doing this. I would be proper screwed, or I don't know. I honestly don't know where I would be. But there's absolutely no way I could afford to live on my own, especially on one income. I think when there's two people, a couple and stuff, it's a bit easier, but even in this current climate, it's so hard for pretty much everyone. It's incredibly hard. I think if I really did focus and kind of figured out my finances and stuff like that, I could probably live on my own somewhere. However, I wouldn't be doing YouTube because YouTube doesn't pay enough money for me to continue making my videos. I spend more money making the videos that I make than the money I actually get from making them, if that makes sense. And I would literally, all my income that I get would go into bills like the house, food, fuel. It would go into all of that. I would have not a single spare penny. So say I was living on my own and my boiler broke down or my car broke down or any of those things happened that happened to everyone in life, I'd be screwed. I wouldn't have money to pay for it. I'd be absolutely annihilated. And I think some people are sometimes embarrassed to kind of talk about their position and talk about how, I suppose, little they have. Because me, myself, I don't really have kind of anything. Like, if I was to write a will, no one would be getting anything because I don't have anything of value. I suppose the most expensive thing I have is my car. A few, like, techie things, a couple of cameras and a computer, and that's it. Have very little savings. Don't have a huge amount of extra income or anything like that, so that's my living situation and that's where I am financially, if anyone wanted to know. But I also think that's the reality for a lot of people. I think especially social media, people see these people who seem to have it all, seem to have these fancy mansions or these fancy homes, well decorated, lovely, all these like special handbags and stuff, but that's not the norm. That's not a normal lifestyle. That's not a normal person. And if you're watching these people and you're thinking that you have to be those people or be in the same position as those people, it's unrealistic. There are more people who are less off and don't have the money and are kind of screwed financially and screwed when it comes to homes and stuff like that than there are people who have got their shit together. I think we're almost fed this idea that by a certain age we need to have a family, we need to have a career, we need to have money in the bank and all of this other stuff, and it's not a reality. Sometimes it's an impossible reality for a lot of people, and I don't think people see that a lot of the time. I don't think it's spoken about a lot. I don't feel like it is anyway. But yeah, that's kind of my living situation. But I also acknowledge the fact that people would kill to be in the position that I'm in. I'm by no means in a really, really terrible position where people need to feel sorry for us or anything like that. There are people who are way, way worse off than I am. Okay, so moving on to another comment. And Natty put, here you have a couple of random ones so you can choose. If you could only make one type of video, a blind Pinterest challenge, cooking with Ant for the rest of your life, what would it be? Favorite film of all time? Have you ever been able to take a picture of all your dogs together where they all look good? If you could go back in time and change something, what would it be? Do you have plans on traveling soon? What are the best and worst crafts, pieces of art that you have ever done? Okay, so if I was to pick only one type of video out of the series that I do, it would probably be the blind Pinterest challenge, although I do love cooking with Ant. But I also couldn't pick, I couldn't decide, I couldn't do just one for the rest of my life. And what's my favourite film of all time? I'm gonna give a super typical gay answer for this one, but I absolutely love Brokeback Mountain. And people can like roll their eyes at us as much as they want. I like it because I love the story. It always makes us cry. So if I need a really good cry, I'll watch that film and I'll just let it all out. I absolutely love the soundtrack to the film. I used to have it actually downloaded on my iPod back in the day, and I used to listen to it all the time and I used to cry. I was a very emotional teenager. I also absolutely love Jake Gyllenhaal and Heath Ledger, and I just think it's a really well put together film. I think the scene and the setting and everything about it, it's just a really, really great film. And I think it has so much of a connection with me because it was at the time when I was kind of coming out and coming to terms with who I was and stuff, and my sexuality and all that kind of stuff. And I remember getting that film on DVD and I used to like hide it and watch it. It used to be like a forbidden kind of secret to watch that film. And yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's got like a nostalgic, pulls on my heartstrings kind of feel to it. I just really, really enjoy that film. Let me know down in the comments what your favourite film is. Everyone, what your favourite film is. But yes, definitely Brokeback Mountain. Call me a cliche, it's fine. Have I been able to take a picture of the dogs together when they look good? No, not at all. Absolutely impossible. If I could go back in time and change something, what would it be? Now that is a question in on itself. I would change so much. I would literally change so much. I think it's difficult because if you're changing something, you want to be able to see what happens with the changes you make. But me personally, two of the things I would change just kind of in my life, not affecting the entire world, I would either pick a completely different career path to pursue and go down. I would not pick kind of the art and creative industries. As much as I love it and as much as I'm passionate about it, I just wouldn't pick it because it is absolutely soul destroying. Or secondly, instead of doing my master's degree, looking back now, if I knew what it was going to be and I knew the experience I was going to have, I wouldn't have done my master's degree and I would have started YouTube 2 years earlier. I just didn't have the confidence to start YouTube back then, and I thought the master's degree was going to be something that it just wasn't. So I think that's something I would change, I suppose. Do I have any plans on travelling soon? Nope, none at all. What are the best and worst craft pieces? Well, obviously the best one I would still say was my mannequin lampshade. My worst one? Oh, there's been so many bad ones. I would say anything when I've tried to do any kind of textiles and it hasn't happened, it hasn't worked. Or another one I would say is that lampshade, doily lampshade that I tried to make, which was impossible and I hated every second of it. It does have a big crack down it, which is a shame. They're probably up there in my mind, but there are loads of others. I've had so many shitters, it's unreal. Okay, so the next question was from Gavin, who put, what are the main differences between your learning at art college and the arts and crafts on your videos? There seems to be a disconnect. I would have thought you would need patience for the arts regardless. Oh, it's kind of a tough one with the kind of education and the arts within college and university and stuff like that. What people don't realise is that a lot of it is theoretical. So a lot of it is writing about why the artwork makes sense and what the artwork is about, as opposed to the actual artwork. So the kind of story behind it and the artist statement and all of that kind of research, they put more emphasis on that than the actual finished piece of work. Like for example at uni, if I was to make a sculpture or something and present this sculpture and the tutor asked, oh, why have you made this sculpture? I can't just say, because I like it. Not good enough. Not a good enough answer. They need to know what the background is behind this, why this curve goes like this, why it's displayed in a certain way, why it's the colour it is, why it's the material it is, why isn't it a different colour, why isn't it a different material, what's the influences to this sculpture. There's just so much that went into it theoretically as opposed to just making it because you want to make it. It's not as creatively freeing as people think it is, because you have to justify every single action and every single thing you do. You can't just be like, oh, I just like it. Why is it red? Just like the colour. You can't say that. It's not a good enough answer for them. And Gavin put that they thought you would need patience for the arts regardless. I don't think you need patience for the arts necessarily, but you need patience, in my experience, for the people you are around and the people you have to share a space with and the people you have to communicate with on a daily basis. Because what happens in the art world and in kind of an art setting and stuff, people are very, very opinionated to the point where their opinions are the only opinions that matter, and their thoughts are the only thoughts that matter. They just can't be challenged on it. And you feel like an arse if you think differently to the masses that are there. And that's why I always felt like I stuck out quite a bit, because everyone else seemed to be in this kind of crowd of people that thought exactly the same way as one another and had a kind of similar personality. And there was me over here. Felt very much like that. It might come across that I don't have a lot of patience when I'm doing stuff on the channel, but that's mainly because I'm on a time crunch and I don't have a lot of time to get stuff done, because I work Monday to Friday and I'm recording videos. I have to edit all the videos, get them uploaded, etc, etc. The recording aspect doesn't take the longest time. It's the editing and all that kind of other stuff behind the camera, what you don't see, that takes the longest. So usually if I'm recording a video, I'm trying to rush things along or get things done as quick as I can, because I've got a schedule to get to. Because I like to be organised. I like to really plan and get everything in order. So yeah, I think that answered that question. I hope, I don't know. And Luxinda commented asking what my top 5 or even 10 runway looks from across the Drag Race franchise is. And I wrote them down. I've got a list. So I'll give you my top 10 in no particular order. And this is from the American Core series as well as All Stars. And by the way, this was incredibly difficult because I probably have a top 100. So if some people haven't made it in, I still love their looks. It's just these ones came to the top of my head. So we've got Manila Luzon's pineapple dress and also her silver gown dress that she did on All Stars. I thought that was fantastic. Raja Gemini, her crown look that she did on All Stars. I thought that was absolutely amazing. amazing. Even though some people didn't like it, I thought it was fantastic. And also her hairball look. The outfit Violet Chachki wore for the season 8 crowning, I thought that was a phenomenal look. Simone's red nail look, that was made from all acrylic nails, which was absolutely fantastic. Another one from that episode would be Gottmik's Hellraiser outfit. I thought that was really cool. I also really loved Nina West's Face Keeney look. I absolutely adored Kylie Sonique Love's like bondage bandaged look. I thought she looked so sexy. I almost questioned my sexuality. She looked that good. Like, she looked amazing. I dread to think how hard it was to get into that outfit. But if I had a body like that, I would literally only ever wear something like that, ever. Going to the shops, I would be dressed like that. Trinity the Tuck's Curves and Swerves runway look, I thought that was really cool. And also her Club Kid look, I thought that was really good. Cameron Michael's feather look, I thought that was amazing. And also I really enjoyed Willow Pill's promo look. And I think I really like this because I just really enjoy the colour combination. And I think she almost looks like a little cartoon character or something crazy. I think it's just such a fun outfit. Okay, so Alice Down the Rabbit Hole commented, I for one would love to get some advice on starting YouTube crafts and tips and tricks you learned along the way. Oh, and do you have any pets? Cute pics would be nice. I would say if you're wanting to start a YouTube channel dedicated to crafts, it's a tough one. I would say it depends how you're wanting to do it. If you're wanting to do it just for kind of like, just fun, just like, it's kind of like a little hobby and stuff, then don't take it too seriously, don't have any rules or anything, just kind of have fun with it. If you're wanting to do it and properly build up an audience and make a little bit of money from it, I would say there are some core rules in YouTube as a whole. I would say 1, make sure you stick to a schedule. So upload a video at kind of a specific time on a specific day and stick to that. I would say secondly, work on editing. I think editing is incredibly important for a video and it just helps a video run a lot smoother. And also editing, when you get the hang of it, it can be really fun and creative. I actually really enjoy editing. I enjoy editing more than I enjoy sitting in front of the camera, believe it or not. And I would say the third piece of advice is make sure you enjoy what you're doing. If you don't enjoy it, there's no point in doing it. And if you're starting a YouTube channel with only the kind of mindset that you want to be kind of famous or you want to make lots of money off it or something, that's going to be very unrealistic because there are so many channels, so much competition, and it's very, very difficult to grow a YouTube channel. No matter what anyone says, there's lots of like videos out there that say, just do this, just do that, and just do that, and then that's all it is to it. Not at all. There's a lot of luck and time, and I would consider creating content for YouTube more of a marathon than a race. It takes a lot of time, a lot of patience, and a lot of effort. I think that's all the kind of advice I would have, really. Other than just don't do it. I'm joking. Do what you want. But be prepared if you're going to be making a YouTube channel and you're wanting to build up an audience and stuff. It's not easy. It is hard and it takes time. It's not just kind of,
I just sit here and piss around with my camera and
done. I've got like loads of subscribers and stuff. Doesn't happen like that. It really doesn't. I'm sorry to burst anyone's bubble, but it really doesn't happen like that. Not for the majority. It'll happen for a very few people, but not the majority of people. And do I have pets? Yes, I do. I have dogs, and I kind of have horses, but they're not really my horses. I used to have 7 dogs. Unfortunately, literally last week, we had to get one of the dogs put down because he was getting old. He was getting just really poorly, really sick. I've already cried my eyes out of it. I'm not going to cry anymore. And I'm not going to talk about it too much because I'll start crying again. So yes, I have 6 dogs now, but I used to have 7 dogs. And I'll probably put some pictures up. There'll be a video up here, and I made them all dog treats when I had a different 6. I didn't have the 7th one, but Hector's in that one. It was Hector who passed away. Obviously incredibly upsetting. We've had him for like over 10 years. He was just getting really old and really poorly and really, really thin and just struggling with life, and he was ready. When we got the vet out, they basically said, yeah, you've made the right decision. It's like his time and stuff. But I'm not going to talk about it too much because I'll start crying. But yes, I have dogs. Okay, and I think I only have time for one more, and it's from your local lesbian. Hello, my local lesbian. And they've left 2 comments. The first one is, I have binge watched many of your videos and noticed you say we and us when referring to yourself. Is it a rural UK thing? Are there multiple of you that you keep in the basement? Did you clone yourself? I have never heard anyone talk like this. Well, anyway, God bless and stay safe, Anne. Now, I have to be completely honest with everyone. What you don't see behind the cameras is there are actually 10 other versions of myself. I did clone myself. There are 10 other me's behind the camera. So when I'm referring to to us, I mean me and all the other me's. No, I don't know why I say us. I don't know whether it's a UK broad term, and I don't say the word us, it's more of an is. So when I say is, it actually means me. So if I say, oh, I'm going to attach this paper to us, but in reality I'm meaning I'm going to attach this bit of paper to me. I don't know why I don't know whether that's a northern thing, whether it's a me thing, or whether it's a UK whole thing. So anyone from the UK who can help me out with this one, let me know if you say is, as in you're referring to me, down in the comments below. And when I say we, I don't know, I think it's just the way people UK talk. If it's not the way people in the UK talk, it's definitely the way the people in the northeast of the UK talk. I think it can't just be me. I don't really pay attention to what anyone else sounds like. I might just be my accent, I'm not sure. And then they've also put, also tea or coffee, and if you say coffee, I will sue you for emotional damage, so like no pressure. And I'm really sorry, but I'm gonna have to say coffee. I know I'm British and I'm supposed to say tea, but I can't survive without coffee. I'm sorry, you can file your papers, you can sue us for emotional damage, but I pick coffee. I pick coffee. But I do love tea too. So I think that just about does it for today's little extra midweek treat. Hopefully you have enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And I'm sorry if this video ended up being incredibly long. I feel like I've been speaking for absolute hours. But if you did have any more questions or anything you want to kind of know, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I might end up doing a part 2. Because there might be some people who want to know more about me. I like talking about myself, what can I say? I'm very, very vain. I'm not actually, I'm really genuinely not. But anyway, I'll see you on Friday for a brand new video. Oh, I need to give my throat a rest.